Sweetheart, sometimes all it takes is the smell of something baking in the oven, like warm apples, cinnamon, and that golden pie crust just starting to bubble, and suddenly you're 18 again. Your knees don't ache, your hair still shines like you swore it would forever, and the world still feels like it's waiting on you. Just this morning, I was tucking that old apple pie out of the oven, the one with the lattice crust I learned from Grandma Hattie, and it hit me, just like that. Bam! A memory I hadn't visited in ages, not since before your mama was even a thought in my head. I stood there in my kitchen, holding that pie, staring out the window like a ghost done walked through me. And it wasn't the pie, not really, it was the feel of the late afternoon light. That warm golden hush that settles right before supper time, when the birds start to quiet and the wind gets lazy. It's the time of day I used to sit out on the porch, dreaming big dreams I was too shy to say out loud. That's when I remembered him. And him, Lord have mercy. You ever keep a secret so long, it starts to feel like just a part of who you are? Like a freckle or a scar, something no one asks about, but it's always there, just under the surface. Well, sugar, I've got one of those. And today, sitting there with that pie cooling on the sill, I thought, maybe it's time I finally told someone. You asked me once about my first love. I laughed it off, said something about how I didn't have time for boys, and maybe I didn't back then. Not really, but that ain't the full truth, not by a country mile. See, back in 1958, I was just a slip of a girl, 18 and full of gumption. Folks called me Little because I was the youngest of 6 and hardly bigger than a minute. I had big brown eyes, a drawer full of love notes I never sent, and more dreams than I had dresses. I thought love was gonna come in like a summer storm, quick, wild, and beautiful. What I got instead, well now, that's a whole story. I was almost married once. Oh yes, engaged, even. There was a ring. There were plans. There was a roast chicken in the oven and a dress hanging on the door. But Lord, let me tell you, he was not the man I loved. Not even close. He was nice enough, dependable, strong, came from good land and better money. But when I tell you he smelled like gasoline and Old Spice, and once gifted me a dead pheasant, child, as a token of affection, well, you start to see my predicament. It was a mess, honey. A full-on, bless their hearts, church whispering, pie bikini, plan making, southern situation. And me, I was caught right in the middle, between what was expected and what my heart was screaming. Now, I ain't saying I handled things like a lady should have, but I did what I had to do. And to this day, I thank the Lord above and every angel on watch that I didn't marry that man. Not because he was bad, no, he just wasn't mine. He wasn't the one who made the world go quiet when he walked in a room. He wasn't the one who made my knees feel like overcooked noodles. And he sure as heck wasn't the one who made me believe in songs. So why am I telling you this now? Well, sugar, some stories don't stay buried forever. Some stories come back, floating up with the smell of pie and the sound of wind chimes in the late afternoon. And when they do, you gotta let 'em speak. Otherwise, they'll sit heavy on your chest forever. So, if you've got a minute, pour yourself another cup and sit a spell. Because I've got a tale to tell. About the day I was almost Mrs. Clyde Thompson, and how I ran faster than a jackrabbit with its tail on fire. But I'll tell you what, you ever think about what would have happened if you said yes when your heart was screaming no? Yeah, think on that a while. Now, shall we begin? Well now, since you're still sitting here with me, bless your heart, I reckon it's time I take you back to where it all began. Not just the story of Clyde or Johnny Ray, no sir, but back to the place where my heart first started learning what it meant to beat on its own. I was a girl back then, barely more than a teenager, just learning to pin up my hair and pretend like I knew a thing or two about life. But truth be told, I didn't know nothing except that I wanted something more. I grew up in a little town you could miss if you blinked twice driving through. One street light, two churches, and a general store where Miss Velma sold penny candy and knew everyone's business before they did. We had dusty roads, cicadas singing in the trees, and summers so hot the front porch swing stuck to the backs of our thighs. Our house was whitewashed with blue shutters and a screen door that slapped shut no matter how gentle you tried to be. It was loud with laughter, louder with arguments, and always smelled like cornbread, coffee, or something frying. I was the baby little dot. They called me the sixth in a wild, wonderful batch of children who all ran barefoot and fought like cats over the last biscuit. My mama, Betty Sue, was the kind of woman who could snap beans with one hand and point to Jesus with the other. Lord, she was tough, believed in hard work, clean sheets, and not airing your business out on the lawn. Daddy, now, he was quieter, spoke more with his eyes than with his mouth. But I always knew when he was proud. He'd light a cigarette and just sort of nod, real slow, like the whole world made sense. Back in those days, I thought life was a straight line. You grew up, got married, had babies, cooked supper, and went to church on Sundays. And for a while, I was fine with that. I'd help Mama hang laundry on the line and hum along to Patsy Cline on the radio, wondering which boy I might slow dance with at the county fair. I didn't have big dreams, not the way you kids do now. But I did dream, oh, I did, mostly at night, when the house was quiet and the moonlight spilled in through the window. I'd lie there in bed, listening to the whistle of the night train, and imagine I was somewhere else, dancing in a sparkly dress, or sitting in a car with the top down, wind in my hair, someone looking at me like I was something special. I didn't need a mansion or diamonds. I just wanted magic. The kind of feeling you couldn't explain, but you'd know it when it came. I believed, back then, that love could fix anything. That if someone held your hand just right, you'd never be lonely again. I believed kindness mattered more than money, and that good people always found their way back to you. I thought the world was mostly good, a little messy, sure, but good at the core. And I carried all that around inside me, tucked behind my eyes and in the space between my ribs. That's who I was at 18. Just a girl in a hand-me-down dress, with dirt on her knees and stars in her head. I could sew a ham, skin a fish, and play the fiddle if you gave me enough sweet tea first. But mostly I was a dreamer. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind who smiles at the sky and makes wishes on falling leaves. I didn't know yet that life would test all those tender parts of me. That folks would try to squeeze the dream right out of a girl and call it growing up. But even back then, I had a stubborn streak, same one you've got, I might add, and I wasn't about to hand my heart over to just anyone, even if Mama said he had strong shoulders and land down by the river. No, darling. I wanted the kind of love that made you laugh at the wrong time. The kind that danced barefoot with you on the porch while the supper burned in the oven. I didn't know his name yet, not for sure, but I knew he was out there. And land sakes alive. I never guessed the mess I was about to step into. Well, now, I reckon you can live your whole life thinking it's going one way, and then one afternoon, bam, something happens that turns the road right out from under you. That's how it was with Johnny Ray. I didn't see him coming. I didn't plan to feel nothing. But mercy me, child. I remember the way the air changed that day. The way my hands went all fidgety. You ever get that? When your fingers can't sit still, but your feet won't move either. It was the county fair, early July. The kind of day where the lemonade don't stay cold and everybody's got a sunburn starting. Mama had made me wear that blue gingham dress with the white buttons, the one she swore made me look respectable. I hated that dress. It was tight at the arms and scratchy at the neck, but Lord help me, I wore it anyway, 'cause Mama said we had to represent the family right, which meant no running, no slouching, and, for heaven's sake, no flirting. We were walking past the bandstand, me and my sister Lenny, who was twirling a caramel apple like it was some kind of baton, and there he was, sitting under the shade of the pecan tree, tuning a beat-up guitar with more scratches than strings. I didn't know his name yet. All I knew was he had this lazy smile and eyes the color of a summer sky right after a thunderstorm, that soft blue with just a whisper of mischief. He looked up just once, and our eyes met. Now, I know that sounds like something out of a storybook, but I swear to you, sugar, the world paused. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears like church bells. I remember thinking, oh no, no, because I knew, right then, before he even played a note. He started strumming, not showy, just easy, like breathing. And then he sang. And let me tell you, it wasn't the smoothest voice in the world, but it had feeling. It was scratchy and real, like gravel on a dirt road, and it hit me somewhere low in my belly. Lenny elbowed me and said, "He's kinda cute." And I, being a fool, said, "He's not my type." But child, my cheeks were already the color of ripe tomatoes. Turned out his name was Johnny Ray, from the next town over. His mama worked nights at the diner, and his daddy was long gone. He played music for tips, for fun, for breathing. Said he didn't need much in life, just a good sky, a good song, and maybe someone to sing it to. Lord have mercy. He came over later, asked if I wanted to walk with him. Just walk, nothing fancy. And wouldn't you know it, I said no. I panicked. I looked down at my shoes and said, maybe some other time, then ran off like a frightened rabbit. I couldn't explain it. My heart was pounding like I'd run clear across town. I told myself it was just a crush, just the heat, just the music. But that night, sitting out on the porch, I kept hearing that voice in my head. And when the wind blew just right, it felt like he was singing right there beside me. I couldn't shake it. Didn't want to. I knew Mama wouldn't approve. Musicians were dreamers, and dreamers, in her book, were good for nothing. But I couldn't help it. Something had shifted. I didn't know his favorite color or how he took his coffee. But I knew how I felt. And that was new. That was dangerous. That was mine. I didn't sleep much that night. I just kept wondering, what if I'd said yes? What if? Now, I wish I could tell you that after meeting Johnny Ray, everything fell into place like a sweet little love song. But sugar, life don't work like that, not in stories worth telling. What came next wasn't a dance or a kiss under the stars. It was a pheasant. A dead pheasant, wrapped in burlap and pride, handed to me by a man I never once dreamed of kissing. His name, as you know by now, was Clyde Thompson. And Lord forgive me, but I still can't think of him without smelling gasoline and Old Spice. He showed up that Sunday afternoon, bold as brass, clean shirt, hair slicked down with enough pomade to grease a skillet. I was out behind the house, picking green beans with Mama, when I heard the rumble of his daddy's old pickup. "Oh, he's here," Mama said, like he was royalty. I wiped my hands on my apron, already feeling that tight squeeze in my chest. You know the one when you know you're being pushed towards something you don't want, but everybody keeps telling you it's what's best. He walked right up, handed me that bird like it was a box of chocolates. "Bagged it just this morning. Thought of you," he said, all proud of himself. I just stood there, staring at it. Poor thing's wings were all stiff. I muttered a thank you, trying not to laugh or cry. I honestly didn't know which one was fixin' to happen first. Mama nudged me so hard I nearly dropped the pheasant. "Say something nice," she hissed under her breath, smiling like it was Christmas. I wanted to run. And then, as if the Lord himself wanted to test me further, He got down on one knee, right there, next to the chicken coop, for all the hens and heaven to see. He pulled out a little velvet box with a gold ring inside. Not fancy, but decent. Mama gasped. I felt like the ground gave way beneath me. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't ready. I didn't want this. But everyone else did. Mama looked like she might faint from joy. Daddy stood on the porch, arms crossed, unreadable. Lenny's eyes went wide, then small. And me? I said nothing. I just nodded. I didn't say, yes, not properly. I didn't cry or kiss him or jump into his arms. I nodded like I was signing a paper I hadn't read, because what else could I do? Mama had been hinting at this for weeks. Clyde's a good boy. He's got land. You won't starve. I was tired of the pressure. Tired of feeling like wanting something else made me selfish. I went along because it was easier than fighting, at least in that moment. But that night, sitting alone on the porch, I felt the first crack deep down, like something inside me was splitting, slow and quiet, but real. I didn't cry. I didn't even talk. I just listened to the wind and thought about Johnny Ray, thought about his voice, and the way he looked at me like I was a song he hadn't finished writing. And then I thought about Clyde, solid, safe, unmovable Clyde, and that dead pheasant laying in Mama's kitchen, waiting to be plucked. I started to scan myself, things I didn't have the courage to answer yet. Could I really go through with it? Could I live a life where I smiled politely at supper and tried not to think about the music I'd never hear again? Was security enough when your heart wasn't in the room? Daddy didn't say much that night, but when Mama went to bed, he passed by me on the porch, touched my shoulder gentle-like, and said, "You know what's right for you, Dottie girl. You always have. That's all. Just that. But it stuck with me. I felt trapped. But not by Clyde, by expectation, by the way people looked at me like I should be grateful. I wasn't ungrateful. I was scared. Scared of hurting folks. Scared of changing my mind too late. Scared that wanting more made me foolish. But most of all, I was scared of letting go of the girl who used to dream under this same Kentucky sky. You know, sugar. There are moments in life that split you clean in two, before and after. Moments so sharp, so full of feeling, you swear the world must have paused to catch its breath. I remember that day like a picture etched in the back of my mind, faded round the edges, but clear where it counts. The sun was high, the sky too blue for anything bad to happen, and yet that's the day everything changed. It was 2 weeks after the yes that wasn't a yes to Clyde. The whole town seemed to already know, folks nodding at me like I'd won some prize. Mama was busy talking about wedding colors and casseroles. Clyde was stopping by more, bringing jars of pickles his mama canned, telling me I'd get used to life on the farm. And me, I was drifting, smiling with my mouth and crying on the inside. I felt like I was living someone else's story. Then came the letter. Lenny found it first, tucked under the porch swing, folded real neat. "It's for you," she whispered, handing it over like it was something sacred. The handwriting stopped me cold. I knew it before I read the name. Johnny Ray. I took it out back, down to the lake behind the Miller property, the one with the old willow tree hanging over the water, like it knew every secret we girls ever whispered. I sat there, breathing slow, afraid to open the paper, afraid not to. My hands shook. I can't quote it word for word no more, but it started simple. "Dot, I know I've got no right, but I had to try." He wrote about that day at the fair. How he'd seen me since then, here and there, always looking like I had something on my mind. How he didn't have land, or money, or a plan big enough to impress a mama like mine, but he had a heart full of music, and every time he played, he thought of me. "If there's even a little piece of you that wants to see where this could go, meet me here. Just once. I'll be waiting till the sun goes down. I remember sitting there holding that letter like it was made of fire and glass. My breath got tight. My heart, oh child, it felt like it was knocking on my ribs, begging to be let out. I looked out across the lake, and every sound faded, the crickets, the frogs, even the breeze. It all went still, like the world knew I was at the edge of something big. But I didn't move. I just sat there. I wanted to. Lord knows I wanted to run to him, throw my arms round his neck, and forget the rest. But the weight of everything I was carrying, Mama's voice, Clyde's ring, Daddy's silence, the fear of what people would say, it pinned me down like stones in my pockets. I cried, not the pretty kind, the deep, heaving kind you hide from everybody. The sun slipped lower. The light turned gold, then soft gray. And when it touched the treetops, I knew I wasn't going. I don't remember how long I sat there after. Maybe an hour, maybe 10 years. I just remember feeling hollow, like the part of me that dreamed had packed up and walked away. I'd made a choice, not by words, but by stillness. And stillness, child, is its own kind of answer. Later that night, I sat by the window and looked out at the stars, wondering if Johnny Ray had waited till dark, if he'd left angry, if he'd left it all. I never saw him again. And something in me changed that day. Not broken, not yet, but bent in a way I couldn't fix. I understood then what Mama meant when she said you can't eat dreams for supper. But I also knew that was the first time I truly felt what it meant to lose yourself trying to be who everyone else wants you to be. After that day by the lake, the world didn't end. The birds still chirped in the morning. The biscuits still rose in the oven. Mama still hollered about laundry, and the preacher still went on too long on Sundays. But inside me, something had gone quiet, like someone pulled the plug on the music, and I just hadn't noticed right away. It wasn't grief, not the loud kind that comes with funerals or goodbyes. It was the softer sort, the kind that seeps in, slow as molasses, and takes up residence behind your ribs. I didn't talk about the letter. I folded it up, put it in a shoebox under my bed next to an old ribbon and a picture of me in pigtails. I told myself I was fine, that I'd made the right choice, that I was being smart, grown up, practical. But every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone just a little more faded than the day before. My laugh got quieter. My dreams got smaller. I stopped humming while I washed dishes. Clyde kept coming around. He'd bring me peaches or corn or something from the farm, always wearing that same proud smile, like he was already mine. And I let him hold my hand on walks and talk about cows and property lines and how many kids he wanted. I nodded in all the right places. I played the part like it was a role I'd been born to. And maybe in a way I had. That's just how it was for girls like me, polite, decent, southern. We didn't chase music. We married tractors. But deep down, there was a part of me, just a sliver, that stayed curled up tight, like a seed waiting on the right spring. I'd sit on the porch some nights, staring out past the fields, wondering where Johnny Ray had gone. If he was playing in Memphis or Raleigh, or just singing to himself somewhere I'd never see. I hoped he was happy. I hoped he forgot me. That's the hardest part, child. Not the loss, not really. It's the not knowing. The not getting to see the version of you that could have been, that you'll never be now. I tried to believe I was still that same girl who made wishes on stars and dreamed of dancing barefoot in the kitchen. But truth is, I wasn't her anymore. She left me that day by the lake. My faith in people didn't break, but it shifted. I stopped expecting folks to understand what was in my heart. I stopped waiting for anyone to ask. I learned to hold things close, to wear a smile even when it felt too heavy. It wasn't bitterness, just quiet. A new kind of quiet I hadn't known before. Even Daddy noticed. One evening, he passed me the sugar bowl and said real low, "You don't sing anymore." I didn't answer. What could I say? The music had gone somewhere I couldn't reach, and I wasn't sure it would ever come back. I started saying, "I'm fine," more often. I helped Mama plan the wedding. I picked out lace. I practiced the smile I'd wear when I said I do. And in the stillness between it all, I kept waiting for a sign, some whisper, some spark, something to tell me I hadn't made a terrible mistake. But nothing came. Just days, stacking up like boxes in the attic. Dusty, quiet, and full of things nobody dared open. Funny how the smallest thing can crack the stillness. It wasn't a grand moment, not some fireworks or a love letter or gospel choir singing my name. It was just a bowl of soup, chicken and rice, scalding hot with steam curling up like ghosts, and a dress. My wedding dress, hanging in the parlor, all ivory lace and stitched up expectations. That's what did it, sugar. That's what woke me back up. It was a week till the wedding. The house was full of women, Mama, Aunt Bertha, a couple of neighbor ladies who came by just to sip coffee and act like they weren't nosing around. The dress was laid out like royalty, pinned and pressed, waiting for me to try it on one last time. Mama was beaming like she'd won a prize pig at the county fair. "Ain't she gonna be beautiful?" she kept saying, over and over, like she was trying to convince the room or maybe herself. I went to the kitchen to fetch more biscuits, 'cause that's what a good bride-to-be does. And there it was, sitting on the stove, that pot of soup. Clyde had brought a chicken the night before, said it was good stock, and Mama turned it into her famous Sunday recipe. I reached for the ladle, and somehow, Lord knows how, my hand slipped. The pot tilted, and just like that, a full bowl of hot soup went flying through the kitchen door, straight into the parlor, and landed square on the front of that wedding dress. It was like the whole world froze. Aunt Bertha dropped her teacup. Mama gasped so loud I thought she'd passed out. I stood there in the doorway, soup still dripping from my hand, and I swear to you, I wanted to cry. Not 'cause the dress was ruined, but because in that moment, with everyone staring at me like I'd set fire to the family Bible, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Sudden, silly, bone-deep relief. That dress was never mine. It was stitched from someone else's story. And now it was ruined, gloriously, irrevocably ruined. Mama started muttering about bleach and salvation, but I just walked out the front door and sat on the porch swing. My hands were still shaking, but my breath, it came easy for the first time in a long while. Linny came out a few minutes later, sat beside me, didn't say a word for a while. Then she leaned over, nudged me with her shoulder, and said, "You did that on purpose." I looked at her, blinking like a deer in headlights. But then she smirked. "It's okay if you did." I didn't answer. Didn't have to. She knew. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Thought about who I used to be. About the girl who danced in bare feet and hummed to the stars. And for the first time since Johnny Ray's letter, I didn't feel numb. I felt nervous, but alive. Like maybe I hadn't missed my only train. Maybe life still had some crooked back roads left to explore. No, I didn't call off the wedding that night. Not yet, but something in me had shifted again. Only this time, it wasn't fear. It was the quiet thrum of maybe. Maybe there was more. Maybe I deserved a life that felt like mine. Maybe that soup was the best accident I ever made. There's a kind of peace that only comes when you've run out of lies to tell yourself. I'd spent weeks trying to fit into a dress that never felt like mine, trying to nod through conversations that made my stomach twist, trying to quiet that little voice inside me that kept whispering, "This ain't your life, baby girl." But that morning, the morning I was supposed to say, "I do," I woke up with the sun streaming through the curtains and a silence so loud it rattled in my chest. And I knew I wasn't going. It wasn't drama. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't even about Johnny Ray anymore. It was just me, sitting on the edge of that bed in my cotton nightgown, feet on the wooden floor, breathing deep like I hadn't in years. I looked over at the dress, still stained faintly from the soup, despite Mama's scrubbing and fretting, and I felt not guilt, but freedom, because for once, I wasn't running, I was choosing. And child, there's a world of difference between those two. I left a note, not because I owed it to Clyde, he'd be just fine, land and all, but because I needed to say it out loud, if only once. I'm not the girl you think I am. I never was. I folded it careful, left it on the kitchen table between the sugar bowl and the salt shaker, and walked out the front door like it was just another Tuesday. I didn't know where I was going, not really. I ended up down by the train tracks, the old line that hadn't run regular in years. I sat there for hours, dust in my shoes, hands in my lap, not crying, not praying, just breathing, letting the quiet settle in me instead of on me. And I felt clean, new, not fixed, no, I was still cracked in places, but no longer hollow. That afternoon, I went home. Mama was silent, wouldn't look at me for 2 days. Aunt Bertha stormed off with a jar of pickles and righteous fury. Linny, bless her, brought me sweet tea and said, "Took you long enough." And Daddy just tipped his hat and said, "Nee, you had it in you." And life, it went on. Slower at first, quieter. I worked at the library for a while, helped out at the diner, started gardening, just for the joy of it. Folks talked, sure they did. Poor Dot, shame about the wedding. But their words stopped sticking to me, 'cause I knew the truth. I hadn't lost anything. I'd saved myself. I found the letter from Johnny Ray again a few months later, still in that shoebox, still folded neat. I read it one last time, then walked it out behind the house, struck a match and let it burn slow. Not out of anger, out of love, out of gratitude for the girl I'd been when she first read it, and for the woman I'd become since. I didn't marry Clyde. I didn't chase after Johnny Ray. I didn't move to the city or start singing on stages. But I chose my life. And that choice, it changed everything. You see, sugar, life ain't about getting it all right. It's about listening when your heart starts whispering. It's about knowing when to stay and when to stand up and say, "Not this. Not me. Not anymore." I didn't need to be rescued. I just needed to remember I had legs. So I walked away, and I kept walking, not bitter, not broken, just free. You know, I still sit on that same porch some evenings. The swing creaks the same way it did when I was 18, and the wind still carries the smell of honeysuckle in June. Sometimes I close my eyes and I can almost hear him strumming that old guitar, or Mama fussing in the kitchen, or even Aunt Bertha cluttering her spoon against a jar, ready to lecture me into next week. It all feels close and far away at the same time, like it happened yesterday, and to someone else. But it was me. All of it. The girl who said yes when she meant no. The girl who ran without leaving. The one who let her heart shrink small to keep other people comfortable. I look back at her now, and Lord, I don't judge her. No, I want to wrap my arms round her and say, "You did the best you could with what you knew then." But I also want to whisper, "Next time, baby, don't wait so long." Life has a way of pushing you into corners, especially if you're a woman, especially back then. Folks will tell you what's practical, what's polite, what makes sense, but no one tells you how to be free. You gotta figure that out on your own. And let me tell you, child, freedom don't always come with trumpets and applause. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a wedding. Sometimes it looks like starting over with nothing but your breath and your backbone. And sometimes it looks like sitting real still, listening to the ache inside you, and deciding you won't ignore it anymore. I used to think the biggest things in life were love and marriage and what other folks thought of you. But now I know the biggest thing, the hardest thing, is learning to trust your own voice. That small, stubborn, sacred voice that says, this ain't right, or there's more out there, or even just not yet. I never married, not 'cause I couldn't, not 'cause no one asked. I just never found someone who made me want to give up the peace I fought so hard for. And you know what? That's okay. I filled my life with other kinds of love, nieces and neighbors and books and music and moonlight. And I never went a day without finding something beautiful to hold on to, even if it was just the way the light hit the floor in the morning. That's a kind of love, too. People think regret means you did something wrong, but I don't regret that summer. I don't regret Clyde or Johnny Ray or even that soup-stained dress. I regret staying silent so long. I regret thinking I had to earn the life I wanted by being good, being agreeable. Turns out, I just had to choose it. And honey, so do you. We all got a moment, maybe more than one, where we gotta stop waiting for permission and start listening to the truth that's already inside us. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's leaving or staying or saying what you've been swallowing down for too long. I told you this story not 'cause I think it's special, but because it's true. And I figure if even one part of it sounds like something you've been feeling, maybe it's time. Time to stop waiting. Time to stop nodding yes when your whole soul's screaming no. Time to stop dressing up for a future that don't fit you. Maybe it's time, darling, to choose yourself. What do you think? Well now, if you're still here, bless your heart. That means you stayed through the whole rambling mess of a love story I never meant to tell. And I thank you for that. It's funny, isn't it? How a slice of pie, a breeze through the curtains, or the clink of a teacup can stir up a whole lifetime you thought you'd packed away. I wasn't expecting to talk about Clyde, or Johnny Ray, or the wedding that never happened and the soup that saved my life. But once I started, well, it just came pouring out like a spring creek after a hard rain. I hope you know by now this wasn't a story about a boy, or even two boys. It wasn't about a dress or a chicken coop or a letter left under a swing. It was about choosing, about listening to your own still, small voice when everything around you is loud and sure and ready to decide for you. And if my story made you laugh or sigh or even tear up a bit, then maybe, just maybe, there's something in it that sounds a little like you. You see, I don't think stories ever really end. We just stop telling them out loud after a while. But they live on in the quiet moments, in the things we pass down, and in the feeling we get when we know we've just heard something true. And sugar, if there's one truth I can give you from this porch of mine, it's this. Life doesn't always come wrapped in a neat little bow. Some suppers never happen. Some hands you hope to hold get left behind. Some songs don't finish the way they started. But that don't mean it wasn't beautiful. That don't mean it didn't shape you. And it sure don't mean you missed your chance at joy. I never did marry. I had a good life. A full one. Quiet, maybe, but filled with enough laughter and sunlight and late-night porch swings to make up for anything I thought I lacked. And sometimes, just sometimes, I wonder where Johnny Ray is now. If he ever found someone who made him stop writing sad songs. If he still thinks about a girl in a blue gingham dress who ran the other way. And here's the truth I don't tell many folks. Sometimes on warm summer nights, when the wind picks up and the sky turns that honey gold color, I swear I hear his guitar, soft and far away. And in that moment, I smile, because I know he remembers. Maybe not my face, maybe not my name, but the feel of me, That kind of thing don't fade. So now I'll ask you something. What are you still holding on to, sugar? What truth's sitting in your chest, waiting to be told? What door are you standing in front of, afraid to open, 'cause you don't know what's on the other side? Maybe it's time, maybe you ain't too late. Maybe love don't have to come back for it to have mattered. But I'll leave you with this. Do you believe real love always finds its way back? Or do we carry the best parts of it with us, quiet like our lives? I don't have the answer. Not really. But some nights, when the air is still and the stars are kind, I let myself wonder.